The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
Then they came to Capernaum, and on the Sabbath Jesus entered the synagogue and taught. The people were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. In their synagogue was a man with an unclean spirit. He cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Jesus rebuked him and said, "Quiet, come out of him." The unclean spirit convulsed him, and with a loud cry came out of him. All were amazed and asked one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority. He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." His fame spread everywhere throughout the whole region of Galilee. The Gospel of the Lord.
Thanks to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Let us please take just a moment to pray to the Holy Spirit for each other. Wouldn't it be great to get through this life with no anxiety? As St. Paul says, anxiety can be paralyzing. There's a big difference between being anxious and having anxiety. You can be anxious if you're about to take a test or a job interview or maybe even going on a vacation. But anybody who's had anxiety knows that it can be paralyzing. You can wake up shaking, you can't focus, you can be nauseous. Anxiety can take over, and many people have to even be medicated for it. But how do we get rid of anxiety? Well, oftentimes, as we hear, there are unclean spirits that we need to rid ourselves of to help us get rid of anxiety. I'm not saying that's what causes anxiety, but oftentimes in confession I'll hear somebody who's been carrying around some guilt for years that has been causing their anxiety. Once they let it go in confession, oftentimes that anxiety goes away. So we have to think of what unclean spirits in our life do we need to get rid of. Moses said in that First Testament reading that God will continue to raise up prophets from among us. And it's hard to think of ourselves as being a prophet, but we are all prophets if we get rid of those unclean spirits that keep us from doing God's will. As you all know, we just got back from our mission trip down in Jamaica, where we build and paint houses for the orphans down there. And as I told you once before, in Jamaica, if someone has a deformed or retarded child or an autistic child, they simply leave that child at a police station or a grocery parking lot or something. And these wonderful people in the middle of the mountains of Jamaica take care of all these orphans. They live in these huts where there's 6 to 12 of them in 2 rooms with 1 bathroom, and that's what we build and paint for them. But believe it or not, as we said, they're probably happier than any people we have ever met. And we can see the face of Christ in each one of them, so they were prophets to us. There was Lee Chin, who's probably in his 20s, Jamaican. One day we had Mass and he just wandered in and joined us. During our petitions, all of a sudden he stands up in his own language, said the most serious petition even though we had no idea what he was saying, and then calmly sat back down. Jason, who's autistic and probably, I would guess, in his early 20s. Every morning there's a swing set on top of the hill with only 1 swing out of 3 that still works. He would start off his day just swinging as high as he could, singing a different song every morning. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, Frere Jacques, whatever it was, happier than you could ever imagine in the worst situation that you could ever imagine. Peter Gay, a woman probably in her early 30s who can be mean at times, but when she came to Mass, She could hardly speak. She knew every response to every word of that Mass. Prophet speaking through her. Lorenzo, little guy probably in his early 20s. Jake Boat, as we were saying the rosary, Lorenzo wandered in and sat down with us. So Jake gave him a rosary and showed him how to go through each bead, and Lorenzo, with his lack of focus, focused on every bead that he was doing. The point I'm making is it doesn't take much to be a prophet. If these autistic, retarded children in the worst situation in life showed us the face of God last week, how easy is it for us to show the face of God to people around us every day? Just get rid of any doubt, get rid of any sin. Your simple smile can show people the face of God. You can be a prophet in a very, very simple way. A prophet is simply someone who reveals Christ to other people. Those orphans did it for us. Like I said, if they can do it in their situation, how much simpler is it for us to be prophets every day of our life, everywhere that we go? So as Jesus said in the Gospel, when those people came to him and said, "What do you have to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth?" Ask yourself this week, if you are to be a prophet, what do you have to do with me, Jesus of Nazareth?